How long have you been working in your chosen profession? 5 years, 10 years, maybe longer. And this might give the impression that the job market is stable, but it's not. Now here are some questions for you. Back in the day, what would you have been doing if you worked as a resurrectionist? What about as a waker-upper? What do phrenologists and radarmen and telephonists do now? All of these professions are gone, and it might happen to yours too, and perhaps sooner than you can prepare for it. A couple of months ago, BuzzFeed America fired 180 journalists and replaced them with ChatGPT neural networks. Now this raised the company's share price by 200%. Now, after that, similar news started to appear almost every day. At Amazon today, robots make up 1/3 of the workforce, but by 2030, experts predict that there will be more robotic workers than human ones. Even McDonald's has launched its first fully robotic restaurant. So what's next? Will retrospective futurology be able to provide an accurate answer, or will it all become irrelevant as the technological singularity arrives? In part at least, statistics might be able to provide an answer. So for example, American experts analysed data for the past 30 years and they found the following. Since 1990, the cost of human labour has risen by more than 200%, while the cost of robots has halved and continues to decline. And this immediately brings to mind McDonald's. Even there, it's clearly profitable to replace humans with robots. And it gets even more interesting. According to a study, by 2030, there will be 73 million people unemployed in the USA because of automation. And only 20 million of them are working in manufacturing. All told, as of today, 46% of the working population in the US has a 70 to 100% risk of losing their jobs to robots in the next 10 to 20 years. And what are you going to do if your profession becomes irrelevant in the next 5 years? Take this video as an example. It was created by living people, but very soon, the scripts will be written by one neural network, another neural network will generate the voice, and a third will create the description of the video. How exactly do we survive in this environment? Elon Musk, who's considered a visionary of our time, believes that since robots will be working, governments will introduce unconditional basic income for humans. And that makes sense. So Henry Ford, the pioneer of the modern production system, introduced many innovations. And these included not only the assembly line and standardization of parts, but also higher wages coupled with shorter working hours. Before Ford, workers in factories spent 10 to 12 hours a day in the workplace. Ford, however, introduced our usual 40-hour work week with an 8-hour workday. And by the way, he doubled the wages of workers. According to Ford, these measures would not only increase productivity and worker loyalty, but also improve the country's economy. After all, people would have both money and the time to spend it. And here he was definitely right. If robots work, the products they produce must be available for purchase, which means that most people still have to have money, otherwise the economy will collapse. That's why a basic income is said to be necessary. But is it really possible in the real world? And is it possible on a global scale? Do you believe in such a future? If not, what other options do we have? What will the total introduction of robots and artificial intelligence actually lead to? Will it be the common good or increased inequality? What knowledge and skills do we need to possess in order not to lose our jobs? What professions should we study and how might we prepare for future job interviews? Let's break it down in this episode. And by the way, we also promise to tell you what is a resurrectionist. So many people try to predict the future. For example, Ray Kurzweil, the creator of speech recognition systems and the CTO of Google, put forward and justified the idea of the technological singularity. In his opinion, progress will evolve like this. In 2027, personal universal robots will become as commonplace as the refrigerator. In 2031, 3D printers will print human organs in every level of hospital. In another 2 years, we will have couples like in Blade Runner 2049, holograms with artificial intelligence. In 37, we will solve the mysteries of the human brain, and in 2038, we will start modifying bodies and embedding additional intelligence in the brain. But in 2044, Artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence by billions of times, which will cause the technological singularity in 2045. Earth will turn into a giant computer and extend this to the entire universe by 2099. Kurzweil's previous predictions have had a high success rate, perhaps something like 85 out of 100 or thereabouts. But his vision of the future so far looks like pure fiction. And to understand the real prospects for the future, let's deal with the present. Today, at this very moment, technology is affecting your work and ours in 3 specific ways. And not all of them are negative. So first, technology expands and accelerates human capabilities. Today, you can get a new profession from home, you can embed a ready-made advanced ChatGPT neural network into a useful bot for your business, you can conduct a lecture or even an operation on the other side of the world. Now, all of this has been a reality for quite a while. For example, back in 2019, nearly 6,000 Da Vinci surgical robotic systems were installed around the world, with more than 8 million surgeries already performed. This is how technology gives access to highly skilled doctors, to people living in the outback, let's say. And this is where robots really save our lives, albeit for now, with the help of humans. The second way technology affects jobs is by increasing access to jobs and the workforce. This is primarily remote work on the internet and moving businesses online or into the meta-universe. Today, employers have more and more candidates to hire because geography is no longer important. Collaboration tools and technologies such as simulation training are improving every day, allowing for more cohesive and productive teamwork. General employee gatherings, meanwhile, can take place in virtual spaces. Many experts believe that traditional workspaces will soon disappear altogether. Instead of a desk in the office, employers will have VR and AR glasses that allow them to work from anywhere. What about you? Would you switch to this way of working? It looks quite cool at first glance, but there are many catches and we'll get to them in this video. The third way technology affects jobs is probably the scariest for human beings. It directly replaces them. And it's not just workers in car factories or Amazon warehouses, but also journalists and paralegals, travel agents, porters and waiters, cooks and sculptors. The list is truly endless. Robotic surgeons are actually being created, including autonomous ones. For example, scientists from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln are now preparing to launch and test on the ISS an autonomous surgical robot, Mira, which in the future will be able to remove the appendix of an astronaut flying to Mars. Or take, for example, legal AI, a well-trained legal artificial intelligence that can draw up deeds and contracts or check and classify documents. They could take on litigation work that doesn't require any advanced legal skills or creativity from a lawyer. Now, on the one hand, it keeps lawyers from having to spend time on mundane, time-consuming tasks, but on the other hand, it keeps paralegals out of work. Now, in general, I'm of the opinion that technology doesn't work against the individual. It's often the opposite. It expands opportunities and allows for additional income. But just like in life in general, we often overlook the good and focus on problems, and it's true that there are plenty of those. Earlier this year, for example, the world was struck by surprising statistics on layoffs at major Silicon Valley IT companies. Amazon laid off 18,000 employees, mostly from retail and HR departments. Google cut 12,000 employees and Microsoft cut 10,000. And both of those companies, by the way, indicated in their farewell letter that they would focus on developing and investing in artificial intelligence, since it's the future, as opposed to living workers. In just the first months of 2023, the tech giants laid off 150,000 people. In this case, Apple technically didn't lay anybody off. It quietly got rid of freelancers and contractors who simply didn't extend their contracts, so technically this doesn't count as layoffs. There are other examples. Recently, for example, a new cartoon from Netflix Japan was completely generated by artificial intelligence. The company claims that it simply lacks live talent, but the artist community doesn't believe it. People think it's all about the need to pay their salaries. And we're no longer talking about the hundreds of thousands of workers who have lost their jobs due to automation of production and, for example, pipeline maintenance, site security, power line inspections. We could go on forever. Of course, mass layoffs aren't always related to the replacement of people with robots and artificial intelligence. A number of experts believe that most of the 150,000 fired employees of techno giants were out of work due to poor decisions of company executives during the pandemic. At that time, top managers launched an unprecedented recruitment drive, which turned out to be unnecessary a couple of years later. Now they're being tossed out on the street, and the executives are largely still in their seats. What do you think? Is that fair? But let's get away from all that sad and serious stuff. It should be noted that there are, of course, a number of amazing professions where a person will always be needed. For example, the viewer of Netflix projects before their release, the tester of new water slides in amusement parks, the professional apologizer in Japan who'll call back the person that you accidentally, or maybe purposely, offended on your behalf. You might ask, for example, could a robot really replace an animal talent agent? Such jobs require creativity and the full range of human feelings and senses. And by the way, there used to be professions that could not be replaced by technology too, but they did disappear on their own. Remember when we promised to tell you about resurrectionists? While one logical guess as to what these people were doing might be to see if the buried person had fallen into a lethargic sleep, resurrectionists were actually stealing buried bodies for scientists in the 19th century, when it was officially illegal to study anatomy on the human body. But if time and the expansion of human rights dealt with resurrectionists, many professions disappeared nonetheless because of advances in technology. And today it could happen again. We are again threatened by robots and artificial intelligence, but how strong is this threat really? What do the experts say about it? Sylvain Duranton of the Boston Consulting Group says that positive cases of AI occur in those companies that implement 80% of their solutions to help humans rather than replace them. So, according to Sylvain, if AI has to make 100% of decisions, it soon begins to behave strangely and disobediently and requires new rules to handle the simplest, most unknown situations. Many experts believe that the most valuable human skill is creativity. In other words, artificial intelligence is about solving problems more efficiently, but human work is about solving problems in new ways, and that's really, really valuable. Now, in actual fact, AI has come a long way from rudimentary question-answer apps and chess games, and today it's being actively implemented in all areas of human endeavor, from education and medicine to IT and business. But so far, it performs mostly narrow tasks related to processing big data or performing calculations and that kind of thing. An AI trained to play chess won't be able to play Go, for example, but that's only for now. It's actually impossible to predict the development and the limits and the extent of the adoption of this technology. It's also impossible to predict the consequences, by the way. The steam engine was expected to lead to mass layoffs. Instead, it increased manufacturing jobs, boosting wages and creating a middle class. Now, a number of studies suggest that new jobs created by robots and AI will be fewer than those which are destroyed. Others, on the contrary, assure that the need for manpower will be enormous. Who do we believe? Well, we asked an expert. Alexander Khadikov, manager of talent attraction in IT at CIPD, is sure that professions will not simply disappear. He thinks they'll transform. He says, "We're not talking about a large number of new professions, but new combinations of functions and competencies, with an emphasis on process management and the ability to work with information systems." Now, we, by the way, agree with this. For example, tutors already teach online, designers send clients 3D models of goods that can be tried or tested in the meta-universe. Combine harvester drivers are learning how to pilot drones in the fields. And it's worth talking about skills here. But first, take a pen and paper and write down what skills you have and what skills you lack in order to stay in demand. And we'll talk a bit about that later. So I guess in an ideal world, it will be up to each country's government to take care of getting people the relevant skills. There are examples of this, by the way. In Singapore, there's a government program called Skills Future, which is designed to provide citizens with opportunities for lifelong learning and skill development. In Canada, the authorities have created a platform called PlanNext, where you can see what in-demand occupations match your skills and where and what you need to learn to build a career in the right field in the future. Do you want to know what skills you need to develop too? Well, we've analysed for you all the key research on the topic and also took the comments of experts. We'll tell you about the conclusions right now. The first and most important of them is the ability to quickly learn new things. For example, if you're a journalist these days and you don't know how to use ChatGPT, artificial intelligence may deprive you of a job. And if you know how, then add your experience and creativity to its abilities and you'll start to write better and get more. A recent LinkedIn survey also showed that the following skills are in demand in the market today. The first, big data analytics, the ability to draw specific conclusions and suggest specific actions for each company. Second, social skills such as teamwork, online and offline communication, and the ability to be a leader and take responsibility. Third, the ability to adapt to rapid changes in the economy, technology, customer requirements, and so on. So another global study showed that skills can be more important than work experience. According to the Amsterdam-based HR company Test Gorilla, 76% of companies hire employees on the basis of skills, and more than half of them test candidates for the actual possession of the skills listed in their resume. Now, this trend, by the way, was at least in part started by Elon Musk. It was he who began to fight that particular form of ageism by hiring young executives capable of solving the problems he needed, rather than those with a good degree or extensive experience. 4 more key skills were recently identified by a study by the Bernie Glass Institute published in Forbes. They were the following: artificial intelligence and machine learning, cloud computing, product management, i.e. accompanying it from development to launch, and social media, in other words, communicating on the internet. Now, in general, all skills in the field of digital technology, as well as working with information, including its search and critical analysis, are in demand today. Now, soft skills are also popular with employers. The ability to communicate, adapt to new conditions, having mobility and responsibility, and also the ability to develop rather than rely on your previous experience. Now for something a bit unexpected. If you have the right skills, it doesn't mean you're safe. While previously the half-life of skills, i.e. the time in which they lost their relevance by at least 50%, was about 6 years, now it's only 3 years. And of course, we have a lot of technology to thank for that. So what exactly should you do? Do you even have a chance to compete for jobs with artificial intelligence and robots? For the most part, experts believe that humans simply can't be better than AI in some areas, such as big data analysis. But humans have intuition and feelings, empathy, innovative and abstract thinking, doubt, and so on, which are still our competitive advantages. We don't compete with machines in speed, we just use them. And we are in complete agreement with this, even though people tend to be afraid of anything new. For example, an 1878 editorial in the New York Times said that Thomas Edison had invented too much and that he should be hanged for his first prototype microphone. To quote, "Something must be done about Mr. Edison, and there is a growing conviction that it would be better done with a hemp rope. Business, marriage, and all social entertainment will be cast aside, except for the totally deaf, and America will return with frightening rapidity to the Stone Age." Now, that sounds a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? Or another example you may have read of, the Luddite movement that arose in 1811 when textile mills began to implement automation and workers attacked and burned advanced industries for fear that they would take their jobs away. As you can see, it didn't actually stop progress, so I guess the lesson there might be don't interfere with progress and just join the new era of technological development. So what can we expect from jobs in the next decade? If you summarize the opinions of the world's experts, you'll understand the following. You'll have more and more chances to get a job at home rather than in an office. And if you do have to look into an office from time to time, it will no longer be a work hive, but rather a smart space served by robots, since people are far from always there. And by the way, how did you survive remote work? Did you embrace it, or did you long to return to the office? So there's another trend, which is the struggle for talent, mainly for those who are able to work better than machines, i.e. to be creative and find non-standard solutions, and work without constant control and instructions on what exactly should be done. Now, regarding the negatives, paranoid employers might begin to monitor remote workers. For example, they might ask how much the computer is being used during work hours, as well as monitoring work correspondence via email and chat rooms. The technology already exists. It's even possible to track employees' biorhythms to keep them from sleeping at the monitor. Soon, it's possible that personal job trackers will appear, which will be stored like a work record book, and the next employer will be able to immediately understand on the basis of their data how good or bad the future employee is. Now, also, a number of professions will definitely disappear in the future. We have compiled and published a complete list of such professions in our Telegram channel. At the same time, professions that require human understanding or participation and empathy won't go anywhere. A soulless machine won't listen to a little old lady at the reception desk, and even the most technologically advanced young people are unlikely to trust a robot to solve issues of life and death, for example, in a court of law. So doctors and lawyers are probably safe, When it comes to educators, nurses and social workers, even hairdressers who are also psychologists in some ways, it's necessary for a person to communicate and feel comfortable. But that's only for now. Now, might the IT sphere remain relatively untouched? Now, it's true that neural networks are learning to code, but creativity and non-standard solutions are still solely the domain of human beings. The same applies to cybersecurity. A talented hacker can be defeated only by an opponent whose creativity matches his own. Where else do you think robots can actually beat us? And we've gathered for you the top 5 professional fields that will remain relevant in the next 5 to 10 years. These are engineers, mechanics, and electricians in industry and robotics, marketing, sales, and customer support professionals in all phases of the buying process, qualified medical personnel, physical therapists, as well as psychologists and educators, computer systems and information security analysts and software developers, specialists in project management and business operations. And if you look further afield, where should you send your child to study so that in 10 to 20 years, they'll still be in demand as a specialist? The main areas are the same as what we talked about earlier: machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data analysis. The job market of the future will require a wide range of skills, combining technical skills with interpersonal skills, such as creativity and communication and adaptability. Now, for ourselves, we would add robotics to this list, where someone has to build and program and fix and maintain robots that will work instead of somebody else. And it's true that robots assemble other robots in the ABB factory, and Elon Musk tried to show us something similar at the last Tesla event. But for now, the job to create robots, even at Tesla, remains a human project. So moving on to specifics, what professions will appear in the next 10 to 20 years? The first and most extensive group is related to the internet. These are content creators for the meta-universe, user experience designers, digital opinion leaders, etc. Those who will create an attractive online environment, lure us there, and sell us something, whether it's goods or job sites. This could also include personal data brokers who will ensure that if companies use our data online, we will at least get an income from it. Another exotic speciality is personal memory curators who will help create personalized virtual spaces for everybody. The second big group is IT specialists. Now, we've already talked a lot about these, of course. When selecting a candidate, everything is relevant, especially if a person can outperform a machine by finding non-standard solutions. The third group is medical specialists in such areas as nanotechnology, robotization of medical operations, creators of smart advanced prostheses, genetic modification and gene editing, and 3D organ printing. Now, also, a number of expert groups are predicting a demand for geneticists to restore extinct species, and also cyber organism designers. And that's where it gets a little scary. What if they decide to resurrect some deadly insects that will lay not eggs, but neurochips inside us, on which certain software is run? The fourth group is space-related professions. These are not only pilots, but also tourist guides, space architects, life support engineers. The fifth group is professional drone pilots and related professions, cross-logistics operators, new vehicle developers, and drone lawyers. And lawyers aren't going anywhere, by the way. They'll instead transition into drones, AI, and robots. Also, the world will need alternative energy specialists, environmentalists, and biologists. There may be demand for smart homes. The technology is already there, but the field is only in its infancy. Did you choose any specialities from this list? What work would you like to be doing in, say, 10 years? So let's move on. The changes will affect not only jobs themselves, but also how you get hired. How do you go about getting an interview in the future? In the distant past, to prove that you were a good worker, you had to eat a lot at the job interview. And whoever ate well would also work well. Those days are long gone. Now, employers and job seekers are using neural networks for both hiring and resume writing. ChatGPT can even answer questions for you in an online interview, and it's not impossible that it could get a job for you. In 2017, the head of SpaceX and Tesla, Elon Musk, talked about his way of hiring employees. To assess a person's competence, the entrepreneur asked the applicant to tell him about the most difficult problems that they encountered in their job and how they dealt with it. In doing so, he didn't assess the level of difficulty of the problem, but the level of honesty in the answer, which he judged by the details of their solution. Now, this is already a creative interview, but things will get even more interesting in the future. So first, experts will profile your personality using artificial intelligence through tests, surveys, social media, and your digital footprint online. Then you'll be asked to demonstrate your talents in a virtual space. But that's not all. The most radical method for hiring in the future will be direct assessment of the candidate's brain using technology and wearable gadgets. And in this case, you can't really cheat. A new field of science, retrospective futurology, will soon help us to have a better look into the future. This is an interdisciplinary scientific field in which the role of scientists will be performed by humans and artificial intelligence. AI will first study the history of all predictions and forecasts, derive general patterns, and then learn to predict the future better than humans. Humans, on the other hand, will observe and study the conclusions of the neural networks, and we'll keep you posted on these studies. All in all, to summarize, despite the exponential development of technology, humans are still in demand, and this won't change in the coming years, or even perhaps decades. Until developers teach AI to be creative or create a general artificial intelligence, we're not in danger of being out of work altogether, but we will have to change nevertheless. We have to get used to the idea that professions, skills, and ways of working are no longer static, and the key task for everyone now is to maintain a flexible mind and the most valuable human qualities such as empathy. What about you guys? What do you think the future holds? Write in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss new episodes from the world of technology.